The landing pods hit the purple soil of Kepler 438c with a series of metallic thuds that echoed across the empty plains. 4 different species emerged from their respective vessels, each following protocols that had kept them alive across dozens of survey missions. The humans were first out as always, their curiosity overriding their caution in ways that made their alien companions nervous. Dr. Emma Walsh stepped onto the alien grass and breathed deeply through her environmental suits. Filters. The air was clean, rich with oxygen, and carried scents that reminded her of pine forests back on Earth. She turned to watch her colleagues emerge from their own landing pods, each species maintaining the careful distances their respective cultures demanded. Commander Vorth of the Draknari military emerged from his sleek black pod like a walking tank. His reptilian scales gleamed in the alien sun as he immediately began scanning the horizon for threats. The Draknari had not survived as a species by taking chances with unknown worlds. Every muscle in his powerful frame remained coiled and ready for violence. From the crystalline pod came Shimmer, the Etherian delegate. Her translucent form caught the light and scattered it in rainbow patterns across the ground. She moved with deliberate slowness, her energy-based physiology requiring careful calibration to new electromagnetic environments. The Etherians had learned through bitter experience that unknown planets could disrupt their very existence with the wrong energy signatures. The final pod opened to release a cluster of Chitauri drones that quickly assembled into the collective consciousness known as Buzz. The insectoid beings moved with mechanical precision, their compound eyes already calculating threat assessments and survival probabilities. The Chitauri hive mind processed information faster than any computer, but this speed came with an inability to adapt to truly unexpected situations. Walsh pulled her equipment from the human pod and began setting up base camp in the center of the clearing. Her movements were casual, almost careless by alien standards. She hummed softly to herself as she worked, a behavior that the other species found both puzzling and mildly disturbing. Why would anyone make unnecessary noise on an unknown world? Dr. Walsh, Vorth's voice crackled through the comm system. Recommend you establish defensive perimeter before setting camp. Scans indicate large predatory life forms in surrounding forest areas. Walsh looked up from assembling her shelter and smiled. Thanks for the heads up, Vorth. I'll keep my eyes open. This response sent ripples of alarm through the alien crew members. The human had acknowledged a direct threat, and then dismissed it with casual words and a facial expression that conveyed no concern whatsoever. Shimmer's form flickered with agitation as she communicated with her homeworld through subspace channels. The Chitauri drones began constructing elaborate defensive barriers around their position. As evening approached, each species had established their camps according to their own protocols. The Draknari had built a fortified position on high ground, with clear sightlines in all directions. The Etherians had created an energy shield that hummed with protective frequencies. The Chitauri had dug in with mechanical efficiency, their position resembling a small fortress. And then there was Walsh, sitting in the middle of the clearing, building a campfire. The sight of open flame on an alien world sent the other species into near panic. Vorth immediately opened a channel to the human camp. Dr. Walsh, what are you doing? That flame signature will be visible for kilometers. You are broadcasting your location to every predator on this continent. Walsh looked up from feeding dry grass to her growing fire. Just making dinner, Vorth. Want to join me? I brought enough food for everyone. The invitation hung in the air, like a challenge. None of the alien species could understand why the human would voluntarily make herself visible to threats, much less invite others to share in the danger. Their survival instincts, honed over millions of years of evolution, screamed that this behavior was suicidal. But as the alien sun set and the campfire began to glow brighter in the growing darkness, something unexpected happened. The other species found themselves drawn to watch the dancing flames from their secure positions. There was something mesmerizing about the way the fire moved, the way it painted shifting shadows across Walsh's face as she prepared her evening meal. The human had removed her environmental helmet, breathing the alien air directly. This act alone would have been considered reckless by any of the other species, But Walsh seemed completely at ease. She hummed again as she cooked, filling the air with sounds that served no survival purpose but somehow made the alien night feel less threatening. Shimmer was the first to notice the eyes watching from the forest. Multiple sets of glowing orbs reflected the firelight from between the trees. Her form pulsed with alarm as she sent urgent messages to the other camps. The predators had found them, drawn by the very beacon that Vorth had warned against. The hour, Draknari commander activated his weapon systems. The Chitauri drones moved into defensive formations. Shimmer began charging her energy projectors. All three species prepared for the attack that their instincts told them was inevitable. But Walsh continued cooking her dinner, occasionally glancing toward the forest, with what could only be described as mild interest. When Vorth's frantic warnings crackled through her comm system, she simply said, "I see them, Vorth, they're keeping their distance. Probably just curious about the fire." The alien crew members could not process this response. The human had identified multiple apex predators watching from the darkness and described them as curious rather than threatening. Either the human had completely lost touch with reality, or she understood something about survival that their entire civilizations had missed. As the night deepened, the glowing eyes moved closer to the fire's edge. The alien species watched in horror as shapes began to emerge from the forest. Massive creatures that looked like a cross between wolves and bears stepped into the firelight. Their teeth gleamed like daggers, and their muscles rippled under thick fur that could probably stop most projectile weapons. Walsh looked up from her meal and smiled at the approaching predators. "Hello there," she said softly, as if greeting old friends rather than facing down creatures that could tear her apart in seconds. The largest predator, a scarred female with eyes like molten gold, stopped just outside the fire's warmth. She sniffed the air, processing the strange sense of alien visitors and cooked food. Her lips pulled back to reveal fangs that could have easily crushed bones, but she made no aggressive moves. Instead, she lay down. Right there at the edge of the firelight, the apex predator of an alien world settled onto her belly and watched the human with intelligent eyes that held no malice. Walsh nodded as if this was exactly what she had expected. She tossed a piece of cooked protein toward the creature, who caught it effortlessly and swallowed it whole. "Good girl," Walsh said gently. "There's plenty more where that came from." From their fortified positions, 3 alien species watched, something that defied everything they knew about survival, about first contact, about the natural order of predator and prey. The human had not only failed to flee from certain death, she had somehow turned the most dangerous moment of the mission into what looked suspiciously like a dinner party. The night was young, and none of them could imagine what would happen next. 3 small shapes tumbled out of the underbrush like furry boulders, tripping over their own oversized paws as they chased each other toward the strange orange glow. The cubs were roughly the size of earth ponies, with the same golden eyes as their mother but softer features that hadn't yet sharpened into predatory angles. Their playful wrestling sent them rolling dangerously close to the fire's edge. Dr. Ray Patel watched from his position near Walsh's camp, his anthropological training kicking in as he observed the family dynamics. The mother predator had shifted, her position to keep watch over her offspring while maintaining her relaxed posture near the fire. It was a delicate balance between protection and acceptance that spoke to intelligence far beyond simple animal instinct. "Fascinating," Patel murmured into his recorder. "The juveniles show classic mammalian curiosity responses, but the adult demonstrates complex risk assessment. She's allowing exploration while maintaining protective oversight." Walsh slowly reached into her pack and pulled out more food supplies. The movement caused all 3 cubs to freeze, their attention snapping to her with laser focus. She smiled and made soft clicking sounds with her tongue, a universal noise that seemed to transcend species barriers. The cub's ears perked forward, with interest. From his fortified position, Vorth was having difficulty processing what he was witnessing. His military training had prepared him for combat scenarios, evacuation procedures, and defensive strategies. Nothing in his experience had covered humans voluntarily feeding unknown predators while sitting in the open, with their backs to a dark forest. "This behavior makes no tactical sense," Vorth reported to his superiors through encrypted channels. The humans have abandoned all defensive positions. They are actively attracting additional threats through food distribution and noise generation. Request immediate extraction protocols. But even as he filed his report, Vorth found himself unable to look away from the campfire circle. There was something hypnotic about the way the flames danced, the way the predators moved with relaxed confidence, instead of the coiled aggression he expected from apex hunters. Shimmer's crystalline form pulsed with confused energy patterns as she tried to analyze the situation through her species' understanding of electromagnetic fields and energy flow. The predators radiated calm rather than aggression, their bioelectric signatures showing contentment instead of hunting preparation. This contradicted every model her people had developed for predator behavior. Energy readings anomalous, she transmitted to her collective consciousness. Predatory species displaying non-aggressive electromagnetic patterns in presence of potential prey. Humans appear to be generating pacification field through unknown means. The Chitauri swarm processed the situation through thousands of calculations per second, but every algorithm produced the same impossible result. The logical response to encountering unknown predators was defensive positioning and threat elimination. The humans were doing the exact opposite, yet somehow achieving superior safety outcomes. Probability calculations failing, Buzz reported through their shared consciousness. Human behavior contradicts all survival mathematics, yet threat assessment, decreasing rather than increasing, does not compute. Walsh caught the largest cub's attention by making a soft whistling sound. The young predator tilted his head, studying her with intelligent curiosity. She slowly extended her hand, palm down, allowing him to catch her scent. After a moment of careful consideration, the cub approached and bumped his massive head against her fingers. The touch sent shockwaves through the watching alien crew members. Physical contact with unknown predatory species violated every first contact protocol they had ever learned. Walsh should have been torn apart instantly. Instead, she was gently scratching behind the cub's ears while he made a sound suspiciously, similar to purring. "Impossible," Vorth whispered, his weapon system still charged but no longer targeted on the predators. Predatory species do not engage in social bonding with unknown entities. But as he watched, the second cub approached, Walsh from the other side, seeking the same gentle attention his sibling was receiving. Soon all three cubs were competing for the human's touch, their previous wariness replaced by something that looked remarkably like trust. Patel documented every interaction with scientific precision, but his academic detachment was being challenged by the emotional impact of what he was witnessing. These creatures, despite their fearsome appearance, were displaying behaviors that reminded him of every domesticated animal he had ever known. The combination of intelligence, curiosity, and willingness to trust was creating something beautiful. In the firelight, the mother predator watched her cub's interactions with the strange two-legged creature, but showed no signs of concern. Her relaxed posture suggested that she had somehow evaluated the humans and determined them to be safe companions rather than threats. This level of rapid social assessment implied cognitive abilities that the survey team had not expected to find on this world. As the fire burned lower, Walsh added more wood to maintain the warm glow. The simple act of fire maintenance seemed to fascinate the predators, who watched intently as she arranged the fuel and adjusted the airflow. The cubs tried to help by bringing her sticks from the forest edge, dropping them hopefully at her feet, with expressions that clearly said, "Like this?" The scene had become something out of a children's story rather than a first contact scenario on an alien world. 3 massive predator cubs played around a campfire while their mother dozed peacefully nearby, and 2 humans sat among them as if this was the most natural thing in the universe. For the alien observers, the impossibility of the situation was becoming undeniable. Their most fundamental assumptions about predator behavior, survival instincts, and interspecies contact were being challenged by a simple human campfire and 2 scientists who seemed completely unafraid of creatures that could kill them without effort. The night was still young, and none of them realized that the real surprises were yet to come. The rustling in the forest started as a whisper, so soft that only the cubs noticed at first. Their playful tumbling around the campfire slowed as their ears swiveled toward the darkness. The mother predator's head lifted slightly, her golden eyes scanning the tree line with the casual alertness of someone checking on expected visitors rather than watching for threats. Walsh noticed the change in behavior immediately. She had spent enough time around Earth animals to recognize the subtle shift from relaxation to attention. "Looks like we're about to have more company," she said quietly to Patel, who was documenting the cub's play behavior with his portable scanner. The alien crew members in their distant fortified positions detected the movement signatures long before they saw anything. Forth's tactical displays lit up with multiple large contacts approaching from all directions. His combat systems automatically began target acquisition protocols as adrenaline flooded his reptilian bloodstream. "Multiple hostiles approaching human position," he broadcast on all frequencies. "Count 20+ adult predators converging on Campfire location. Dr. Walsh, Dr. Patel, initiate immediate evacuation to secure positions." But the humans made no move to flee. Walsh actually seemed to relax further as she added another log to the fire, sending fresh sparks spiraling into the alien night sky. Patel adjusted his recording equipment to capture whatever was about to happen with scientific thoroughness. Shimmer's crystalline form blazed with alarm frequencies as her sensors detected the approaching life forms. Each creature registered as a significant bioelectric signature, indicating massive size and high metabolic activity. Her energy projectors automatically began charging defensive patterns. "Extreme danger detected," she transmitted to the collective consciousness. "Humans refusing evacuation orders. Pack hunting behavior confirmed. Estimate complete human termination within 3 minutes." The Chitauri swarm's calculations went into overdrive as Buzz processed the tactical situation. 20 adult predators against 2 unarmored humans in open ground with no defensive cover except a primitive fire. The mathematics were simple and brutal. Survival probability approached 0. "Initiating emergency intervention protocols," Buzz announced as their drones began moving toward the human position. "Cannot allow research team casualties due to human illogical behavior patterns." But before any of the alien species could implement their rescue attempts, the pack emerged from the forest. They came out slowly, one by one, massive shapes materializing from the shadows like living nightmares. Each adult predator stood nearly 2 meters tall at the shoulder, with powerful hindquarters built for explosive speed and foreclaws designed for bringing down prey many times their own size. Their thick fur was marked with scars that told stories of survival in a hostile world. The alien crew members watched in paralyzed fascination as certain death approached the human campfire. Emergency protocols screamed through their communication systems. Weapons systems locked onto targets. Evacuation ships powered up for immediate departure. And then the impossible happened. The pack leader, a female even larger than the one already resting by the fire, stepped into the light and sat down. Not in a crouch ready to spring, not with muscles tensed for attack, but in a relaxed sitting position that mirrored the posture of a well-trained earth dog waiting for dinner. One by one, the other pack members followed her lead. They arranged themselves in a rough circle around the campfire, with the humans and cubs in the center. Some lay down with their heads on their paws. Others sat upright, watching the fire with the same fascination that had captivated their alien observers. Walsh reached into her pack and began distributing food to the assembled predators with the calm efficiency of someone feeding pets in their own backyard. Each massive creature accepted their portion with gentle care, their fearsome jaws handling the offerings with surprising delicacy. "This is not possible," Forth whispered, his targeting systems unable to maintain locks on creatures that were displaying no aggressive behavior. "Apex predators do not gather peacefully. Pack hunters do not share territory with unknown species. This violates all known behavioral patterns." But the evidence was undeniable. 23 adult predators, each capable of devastating an entire military squad, were settling down for what appeared to be a communal meal around a human campfire. The cubs had resumed their play, now with even more confidence as their entire extended family provided security through their presence. Patel was frantically recording everything, his scientific mind racing to understand the implications of what he was witnessing. "Emma," he said quietly, I think we're seeing something that's going to change how every species in the galaxy approaches first contact. Walsh nodded as she scratched the massive head of the pack leader, who had moved close, enough to rest her muzzle on the human's knee. It's funny how universal some things are. Fire, food, family. Doesn't matter what planet you're on or what species you're dealing with, some things just work. The pack had arranged itself with unconscious efficiency that spoke to intelligence and social organization far beyond what the survey had expected to find. Older predators positioned themselves on the perimeter, maintaining watch over the group. Younger adults stayed closer to the fire, ready to respond to the cubs' needs. The cubs themselves had claimed the space nearest to Walsh and Patel, as if the humans had somehow been adopted into their family structure. From their secure positions, the alien crew members struggled to process what they were seeing. Every instinct, every protocol, every piece of training they had received told them that this situation should have ended in violence. Instead, they were watching an interspecies gathering that resembled nothing so much as an extended family dinner. The fire crackled and popped, sending occasional sparks into the air that made the cubs jump playfully while the adults watched. With amused tolerance, Walsh pulled out a small musical instrument, something she called a harmonica, and began playing soft melodies that seemed to soothe the entire pack. As the alien night deepened around them, the impossible campfire circle continued to grow more peaceful rather than more dangerous. The humans had somehow achieved in a single evening what the other species would have considered the work of decades: the establishment of trust, communication, and mutual benefit with a completely unknown alien species. And they had done it all, with nothing more advanced than fire, food, and the inexplicable human ability to see friends where others saw only threats. The soft melodies from Walsh's harmonica drifted across the clearing like a bridge between worlds, carrying something that transcended language or species barriers. The pack members closest to her had begun to synchronize their breathing with the rhythm of her music, creating an almost meditative atmosphere around the crackling fire. Dr. Patel set down his recording equipment and leaned back against his pack, watching the scene with the wonder of someone witnessing history being made. The largest cub had fallen asleep with his massive head resting across Patel's legs, snoring softly in a way that vibrated through the human's entire body. It was trust so complete and innocent that it made his chest tight with unexpected emotion. From his elevated position, Vorth found his tactical analysis system struggling to categorize the situation. His targeting computers kept cycling through threat assessments, unable to maintain weapons locks on creatures that were displaying every possible indicator of peaceful intent. The pack leader was actually grooming one of the younger predators, while keeping one eye on the fire, behavior that suggested deep social bonds and hierarchical structure. "Commander," one of his subordinates spoke through the comm system. "Request permission to move closer to human position for better observation angles." Vorth's first instinct was to deny the request. Moving closer to 20-plus apex predators violated every military doctrine his species had developed. But something about the scene below was challenging his assumptions about risk assessment. The humans were not only surviving this encounter, they were thriving in it. "Negative," he replied, but his voice lacked conviction. "Maintain secure perimeter." Yet even as he gave the order, Vorth found himself calculating approach routes that would bring him closer to the impossible gathering around the fire. Shimmer's consciousness was equally conflicted. Her energy-based physiology allowed her to sense the emotional states of biological creatures through their bioelectric fields, and what she was detecting made no sense according to her species' understanding of predator psychology. The massive creatures around the fire were radiating contentment, curiosity, and something that could only be described as happiness. Electromagnetic readings inconsistent with known predator behavior patterns, she reported to her collective. Creatures displaying emotional signatures associated with pack bonding and social comfort. Humans appear to be triggering protective rather than aggressive responses. The response from her homeworld was immediate and alarmed. Etherian protocols demanded immediate withdrawal from any situation involving unpredictable alien psychology. Contact with species that could influence emotional states without technological means was considered extremely dangerous. But Shimmer found herself reluctant to follow evacuation orders. The energy patterns emanating from the campfire circle were unlike anything she had ever encountered. There was a harmony in the bioelectric fields that spoke to something deeper than mere survival instincts. It was as if the humans had somehow created a space where different forms of consciousness could coexist without fear. The Chitauri collective was experiencing something unprecedented: computational paralysis. Buzz's thousands of individual drones were all processing the same impossible data set, and none of their algorithms could produce logical explanations for what they were observing. Pack predators did not adopt alien species into their social structure. Apex hunters did not share resources with unknown entities. Territorial creatures did not invite strangers into their family groups. Yet all of these impossible things were happening simultaneously around the human campfire. Collective consensus failing, Buzz transmitted to their hive ship in orbit. Observed behaviors contradict all stored behavioral models. Request new programming parameters for impossible scenarios. The response from the Chitauri fleet was equally confused. No precedent existed in their vast databases for the situation developing on the planet's surface. The hive mind that had successfully predicted and cataloged behavior patterns across hundreds of species was failing to understand two humans sitting around a fire. As the night progressed, the campfire circle began to exert an almost gravitational pull on the alien observers. Vorth found himself moving closer without conscious decision, drawn by something that bypassed his tactical reasoning entirely. His reptilian ancestors had been solitary hunters, but watching the peaceful gathering below awakened genetic memories of times when cooperation meant survival. Shimmer drifted toward the fire's edge like a moth drawn to flame, her energy form naturally attracted to the warmth and light. Her usual caution was being overwhelmed by curiosity about how the humans had achieved such perfect harmony with potentially dangerous alien life. The Chitauri drones moved in their characteristic swarm formation, but their approach was exploratory, rather than defensive. For the first time in their collective memory, they were encountering a situation that required intuitive understanding rather than calculated response. Walsh noticed the alien approach without alarm. She looked up from the cub she was gently grooming and smiled at her approaching colleagues. "There's room by the fire," she called softly. "The pack doesn't mind sharing the warmth." The invitation was simple, but it carried implications that rocked the foundations of everything the alien species believed about interspecies contact. The humans were not just successfully interacting with unknown predators, they were suggesting that their alien colleagues could do the same. Vorth was the first to reach the fire's edge, his massive form casting dancing shadows across the pack members who barely glanced up at his arrival. The pack leader lifted her head to sniff in his direction, processing his alien scent with the same calm evaluation she had given the humans. After a moment, she lowered her head back to her paws in a gesture that could only be interpreted as acceptance. "Remarkable," Vorth said quietly, settling into a crouch that maintained dignity while showing respect for the pack's territory. "They evaluate threats individually rather than responding to group prejudice." Shimmer arrived in a cascade of prismatic light that made several cubs look up with delighted interest. Her energy form seemed to fascinate them in a way that was completely different from their response to the solid forms of the other species. One particularly bold cub approached her glowing outline and seemed to be trying to play with the light patterns she naturally generated. "Energy interaction positive," Shimmer reported with something approaching wonder in her harmonic voice. "Juveniles display curiosity rather than fear toward unknown electromagnetic signatures." Buzz's swarm coalesced into a roughly humanoid shape. As they joined the circle, their compound eyes reflecting the firelight in thousands of tiny sparkles, the pack regarded the insectoid collective with the same calm assessment they had shown the others, recognizing intelligence despite its alien form. As all four species settled around the fire together, with the predator pack forming an outer ring of protection and companionship, something unprecedented was taking place. Not just first contact, but first community. The humans had somehow created a space where beings from across the galaxy could sit together in peace, united by nothing more complex than shared warmth and the ancient comfort of fire. The campfire crackled on, illuminating faces and forms that should have been incompatible, while above them the alien stars witnessed the birth of something that would change the galaxy forever. 4 days later, the impossible had become routine. The morning ritual now included Walsh brewing coffee over the fire, while pack members waited patiently for their share of breakfast rations. The cubs had learned that the humans always saved the best portions for them, and they would line up with expressions of eager anticipation that would have been comical if they weren't the size of small vehicles. Vorth sat cross-legged beside the pack leader, his scales warming in the morning sun as he filed reports that his superiors were having difficulty believing. The massive predator had taken to using his armored shoulder as a backrest, treating the Draknari commander like a convenient piece of furniture. This casual intimacy from a creature that could have crushed his skull with a single bite had fundamentally altered his understanding of strength and vulnerability. Military assessment complete, he dictated to his recording device. Humans demonstrate superior tactical advantage through trust-based alliances rather than force-based dominance. Recommend immediate revision of first contact protocols to include human methodologies. His words carried weight that would ripple through Draknari command structures for generations. A warrior culture built on strength and dominance was being forced to confront the possibility that their entire approach to survival might be flawed. Shimmer had discovered that her energy patterns could soothe the pack members into deeper rest cycles while their bioelectric fields helped stabilize her own quantum fluctuations. The symbiotic relationship had developed naturally over the course of their shared nights, creating benefits for both species that neither had anticipated. She pulsed with gentle light as 3 of the younger pack members arranged themselves around her crystalline form for their afternoon nap. Electromagnetic compatibility exceeds all theoretical models, she transmitted to her collective. Biological neural networks appear capable of harmonizing with pure energy consciousness. Implications for Etherian evolution significant. The response from her homeworld carried undertones of excitement that bordered on religious revelation. The Etherians had always believed they were fundamentally incompatible with biological life forms, but the evidence from Kepler 438c suggested otherwise. Buzz had perhaps undergone the most dramatic transformation of all. The Chitauri collective consciousness had discovered that individual pack members could recognize and remember each of their thousands of component drones. This level of individual recognition within a group dynamic was something the hive mind had never experienced before. Several pack members had begun bringing gifts of interesting stones and unusual plants, specifically to individual drones, as if they understood that the swarm was composed of unique entities. Collective identity paradigm requires complete revision, Buzz reported to their ship mind. Individual recognition within group consciousness creates new forms of social bonding. Humans appear to understand multi-level identity instinctively. The implications were staggering. The Chitauri had built their entire civilization around the assumption that group consciousness was superior to individual identity, but the pack was showing them that both could coexist and strengthen each other. Dr. Patel had filled dozens of data storage units with behavioral observations, but his most important discoveries couldn't be quantified in scientific measurements. He had watched alien species overcome millions of years of evolutionary programming, simply by following human examples of openness and trust. The Campfire had become a laboratory for studying not just animal behavior, but the fundamental nature of consciousness itself. The fire creates a neutral space, he explained to Walsh as they prepared their final evening meal. It's not territory belonging to any single species, so everyone can enter it without triggering territorial defense mechanisms. But more than that, it represents controlled danger that requires cooperation to maintain. Everyone has to contribute fuel. Everyone benefits from the warmth and everyone shares the responsibility of keeping it alive. Walsh nodded as she watched Vorth teaching one of the cubs how to properly arrange kindling for optimal airflow. The sight of a heavily armed Draknari warrior patiently instructing an alien predator in fire management techniques was something that would have been considered impossible just days earlier. It's more than that, though, Walsh replied. Fire was our first technology, but it was also our first act of faith. Every time our ancestors lit a fire, they were announcing to the world that they intended to stay in one place long enough to tend it. It's a declaration of confidence in the future. As if to prove her point, the pack leader approached with a massive piece of dead wood gripped carefully in her jaws. She dropped it beside the fire and looked expectantly at Walsh, who smiled and added it to the flames. The gesture carried profound meaning. The pack had moved beyond simply accepting the fire to actively maintaining it. The evening's final surprise came when the alien crew members began sharing their own cultural traditions around the fire. Fourth, demonstrated Draknari harmonizing techniques that made the pack members tilt their heads in musical appreciation. Shimmer created light patterns that told ancient Etherean stories about the birth of stars. Buzz organized their drones into complex geometric formations that told the mathematical poetry of the Chitauri collective consciousness. The pack watched each performance with intelligent attention, occasionally offering their own contributions, in the form of coordinated howls that created harmonies with alien music, or playful movements that mirrored the patterns being displayed for their entertainment. As the fire burned low and the mixed group settled into sleep arrangements that would have horrified xenobiologists across the galaxy, Patel made his final log entry of the mission, Day 4 of Kepler 438c survey. We came here to study an alien ecosystem and ended up discovering something far more important. We learned that consciousness recognizes consciousness, regardless of the form it takes. That trust, once given freely, creates bonds stronger than any diplomatic treaty, and that sometimes the most primitive human technologies are actually the most advanced social innovations in the galaxy. He looked around the campfire circle one last time before activating his sleep cycle. Predators and aliens and humans lay together in peaceful coexistence, the fire casting dancing shadows over a scene that would be remembered as the moment when the galaxy learned that civilization wasn't about building better walls, but about expanding the circle to include everyone willing to share the light. Above them, the alien stars wheeled in their ancient patterns, but something fundamental had changed. The universe had become a smaller, friendlier place, and it had happened around a simple human campfire on a distant world where cubs had dared to crawl into the light and aliens had learned to breathe again.